Hello and welcome back. Now today we're going to be working on the 2004 Sunfire again. This time we're going to be installing a cold air intake to it. Now, as you can tell, we have an AEM box. Now usually, as you know, I prefer K&N for a cold air intake. But, luckily, back in 2009, K&N bought out AEM. So actually the filter in this is actually a K&N filter. Now also, I actually do prefer this cold air intake over the K&N. Because as you can tell with most K&Ns you'll see, is the filter's under the hood and it's got a little heat shield, but that honestly does not make it a cold air intake. They work good, they make power, but you're still drawing in hot air because it's not completely sealed off from the under the engine. So you're still drawing in hot air. Now this long tube is actually putting our filter down and out of the engine bay and basically putting it right about where the factory inlet tube is for this car, so we're still going to get cool air to it. And with it being a longer tube runner, technically it should increase our torque a little bit too, so that's to look forward to. Now there is a little bit more work involved in installing this kit to this car. We're going to have to remove our battery and our windshield wiper fluid reservoir, but in the meantime of doing that, we're going to go ahead and replace the pump for it because it quit too, so that's a bonus on that. Now the other unfortunate part is you're going to have to take the driver's side tire off and take the inner fender off in order to get everything out of the way and put all the new stuff in. So there's a little more work involved, but it is a true cold air intake. Now I bought this one used, which is why we're going with it. So if you're like me, you prefer K&N, well, I didn't feel like paying over $300 for a cold air intake for a car that I didn't even pay $1,000 for. That just does not make sense to me. So actually I literally bought this used for under $20, which you can find the AEMs cheaper than K&N usually, just because some people are like, I only want K&N. But as I told you, and you can tell if you look at the filter, it does say K&N on it, so we're not really losing anything there. So I'm going to show you step by step on how we do this, starting with jacking the car up, removing the tire, and we'll go from there. Now the first thing we're going to do is assemble everything with the stock air box. Remove our hose here, remove these two clamps, remove our line for our fuel pressure regulator, which we already did, remove our air intake temperature sensor. And on this one, since we bought it used, it didn't come with a grommet, we will reuse the grommet in the tube. Now to get this part off the throttle body, if you look back down through here, straight shot, there's our hose clamp to loosen off so we can get the air box off the throttle body. Next step is to remove the battery. I always like to start with the positive side so that we don't have to worry about any kind of shorts or anything. Now someone before has stripped those out, which is probably going to be a common problem, unfortunately. So now is a good time to replace them if you have that problem. like these. So unfortunately, there we go. So what we're going to do before we can put this all back together, we're going to clean ours really well. Now that's one thing I haven't done is pulled the battery out of this car yet. But now that I have, we're going to have to do a lot of cleaning. Make sure, remove all the corrosion off this with either Coca-Cola, Scotch-Brite, wire brush, something. And make sure you wash your hands really good after you do that. Now for this, which the battery terminal should be 8mm. This is a 1/2 or a 13. We're going to loosen this off. Now one other tip I'd like to point out is that battery trays are really bad and notorious for rusting out. So while you have your battery out, you can see it's corrosion. Some of it's not rusted through, but you see surface rust. Right now is a good time to go ahead and scuff it up, clean it off, and paint it. That way we don't have to worry about rusting through in the future. That way at least it'd be a little preventative of a measure now. Now we're going to remove our fuse block here. Now I'm going to do that on this little push-in holder with a screwdriver, a pair of pliers. And do that on both sides. Remove the wiring. Now we got that a little bit out of our way, enough to pull our stock air box out of the way. There we go. Now with our little 7mm, we're going to loosen up 4 bolts, and we got one retainer right here. We're going to remove this part of the inner fender so we can get access to the windshield wiper fluid tank and the rest of the factory snorkel. And there's one more up front that I see. Now it looks like I'm missing a few. It's actually one missing. There's 2 closer to the up front that we're going to have to remove now. Ugh, dirty. Alright, now there's some more screws holding in the windshield wiper reserve under the front. One there. One up in there. And then we're also going to take out this cross brace holding the outer fender in place. Make it a little easier. Alright, now on this side, before we can drop it, we'll unplug our pump for the windshield wiper fluid and the little hose. And we'll just drop it out. Now up here, make sure you get it in the opening just right, and it'll all come out. Now, if you use your windshield wiper fluid, now's a good time to go ahead and change that because it's already there and out of the way and easy to get to. Now we're just going to remove this bolt between the fluid reservoir and the air box and get the air box off there and out of our way. Now the next step would be to apply the neoprene patch that comes with it, but since we bought it used, it's probably still in the car it came off of. So what I do is took a piece of rubber with some silicone, put 2 self-tappers to hold it in place till it dries. Now these self-tappers can't stay in because they're not too long. They're barely sticking through. Now if you have the mounting kit with yours, which we do not unfortunately, one of them will be going through this hole here and through this hole here. Now we don't have it, so we're going to go ahead and install our pipe, and then we're going to make our own mounts. Now if you don't have any, like we don't, all it really is just a bolt running through some rubber that's supposedly supposed to help with the vibrations. It does a little bit, but not a whole lot. So we can just make our own and go with it. Now what we did was we went ahead and wiggled our pipe in over there through the hole. So now what we're going to do is put the other side on so we can get the proper fitment. First we start by putting the supplied gasket ring around the throttle body. And we're going to put our clamp on our intake tube. And then we're going to gently fit it in. And then what I'm going to do, go ahead and just fit up the other side, so at least I can get an idea where exactly everything truly needs to be to ensure a 100% proper fitment. Because one thing I did notice is that the whole existing hole, one of the existing holes doesn't really get the pipe to line up exactly like we'd like, which is right there. And this hole looks like it could cause some trouble eventually where it's sliding in, but hopefully there's enough flex here and here that we can kind of tighten this down on this end, so we don't have to worry about rubbing a hole through our cold air intake where it goes through the body. We're just going to make sure everything is nice and right first. And do a little readjusting. Make sure we get everything right exactly where we want it to. Make sure everything fits exactly right. Now as you can see, we pretty got everything fit and tightened. Now one thing I'm doing different than the kit is right here where the vacuum line is supposed to be for the fuel pressure regulator. I put a brass fitting in there, so it's a lot more secure than putting a hose barb in there than running the hose. This way, this isn't going to accidentally slip out because it's also, I got sealant on it to keep it from falling out. So it's tightened down, sealant on it. And I just run it up here, hose barb like it says to do in the kit. And it's just factory there. Now the next steps are basically going in reverse. So we're going to want to put everything back together. Okay, now down here, you're going to make sure you get your windshield wiper fluid reservoir in good. Now it's going to be kind of snug up against the pipe here. We're going to get everything lined up and start putting it back together. Now, as I said before, if you're not using this and want to drop a little bit of weight for whatever reason, make sure you put some kind of guard here just to keep the filter from getting too much debris or a lot of water, because even our stock air box, after we removed it and turned it around, there's some moisture coming out of it, so it's still got water in it. And what we're going to do once we get the filter on and this bolted up, we're going to put part of the inner fender back in, and then we're going to look at a way maybe we can let air in but kind of help prevent moisture and water from coming up to the filter. Now, we do have a weather guard for our filter, but I'd rather play a little safe and put a little extra guard somewhere in here. Now, one fitment issue we're running into right now, the way it is, we're going to loosen up some stuff. The filter is actually hitting the inner fender there. I really don't want that rubbing up against there like that. Now, it does fit up nice and tight, but just to be on the safe side, we're going to do a little tweaking up top. Just make sure it fits right. Okay, just now looking at it, you can see I got a little flap here to direct the air in from the stock. You can see the filter there. There's not a whole lot of way for the water to get in unless you splash really hard. Now, if you look back there, there's still a way for air to get in. There shouldn't be a lot of water getting there. So what we are going to do is actually use a little piece of rubber trim that you would find around, basically, you can get them in a hardware store. Kind of like a little trim you'd put at the bottom of a wall up against the floor. See them a lot in restaurants and everything. And that's what we're going to try. And it's right here. There's some metal back here we can kind of attach this to and drop it down. And it'll be some kind of, at least a little bit of a guard to block some of the water coming through. So that's what we're going to do. Now, you can't really see the filter, but there's still a way for air to get around, so that should protect the filter from a lot. Now we start it, make sure everything's tight, make sure there's no leaks, make sure everything is good, and then we're set to test drive it and see how it does. Alright, now there it is. We installed our AEM cold air intake. Now, it was a little bit tedious compared to a K&N, but it gets the job done. We're not throwing any engine codes yet, and so far so good. Now, I have seen where there have been dyno tests between AEM and K&N. Now, usually K&N does pick up more horse and more torque power, but even some of the guys running the dynos will say that that is a dyno controlled environment. the way the AEM is designed is supposed to be designed for real-world driving, which, as you can see, with the filter down and out from under the engine bay, you're not sucking in that heat, and you're actually, while you're going down the road, you're getting a good supply of fresh air. So therefore the numbers can change. A lot of times on the dyno, we'll have the hood open or something, so you're actually not getting a completely real world number. So it's a give or take there. Now, of course, on the Sunfire, K&N showed a 4 or 5 horsepower gain, and I didn't feel like paying over $300 for 4 or 5 horsepower for this car. So I went the cheaper route, so we'll see how that goes. It should do a lot better than the stock, obviously, which it seems to already. I don't have any dyno numbers, but hey, acceleration picked up. I'm good. It's not a drag car, so I'm not completely worried about numbers. Now, hopefully this video helped you decide that if you wanted to go this route or stick with the K&N, and hopefully it proved useful to you. And as always, thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for future projects and other how-tos and other products that we may come up and try.